Hi everyone, welcome back to the Palette of the Past. In today's episode, we're going to discuss the final part of King Solomon's story in the Bible. If you enjoy this video, give it a like and consider subscribing for more interesting stories. The turning point in the life of Solomon, as depicted in the Bible, is often associated with his later years, during which he reflects on the emptiness and futility of pursuing worldly pleasures and achievements without considering God's wisdom and guidance. This turning point is most prominently explored in the book of Ecclesiastes. Solomon began his reign with great wisdom and prosperity, but he gradually became entangled in pursuits that led him away from God's commands. He indulged in material wealth, built grand structures, amassed riches, and pursued sensual pleasures. However, despite his accomplishments, Solomon found no lasting satisfaction or fulfillment in these pursuits. According to the biblical account, Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. These included foreign princesses, such as Pharaoh's daughter, as well as women from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and the Hittites. Solomon's many marriages, especially to foreign women who worshipped other gods, eventually led to his heart turning away from the Lord. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1, NIV. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. Solomon's decision to marry many foreign women for both political and personal reasons caused problems. These marriages brought different cultures and beliefs into Israel, leading to the worship of other gods. With 1,000 in-laws, the kingdom's moral values declined. Solomon's actions created a culture of immorality, paving the way for future difficulties in following God's commands. 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 3 to 7, NIV. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. He followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely, as David his father had done. On a hill east of Jerusalem, Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. The foreign women Solomon married brought their gods and insisted on engaging in pagan rituals, often involving sensual practices. Despite claims of tolerance, these actions introduced idolatry into the heart of the nation of God's people and caused Solomon's own heart to drift away from God. The influence of these foreign practices went against the core principles of worshipping the one true God and led to spiritual compromise. 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 7 to 14, NIV. On a hill east of Jerusalem, Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. He did the same for all his foreign wives, who burned incense and offered sacrifices to their gods. The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. Although he had forbidden Solomon to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command. So the Lord said to Solomon, "Since this is your attitude and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees, which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Nevertheless, for the sake of David your father, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. Yet I will not tear the whole kingdom from him, but will give him one tribe for the sake of David my servant, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen." Then the Lord raised up against Solomon an adversary, Hadad the Edomite from the royal line of Edom. Solomon's errors, particularly his departure from worshipping the one true God due to the influence of his foreign wives, led to consequences in his later years. As a result of his disobedience, God raised up adversaries against Solomon. These adversaries became a source of trouble and challenges for him, marking the repercussions of his departure from God's commands. 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 23 to 26, NIV. And God raised up against Solomon another adversary, Rezon son of Eliada, who had fled from his master, Hadadezer, king of Zobah. When David destroyed Zobah's army, Rezon gathered a band of men around him and became their leader. They went to Damascus, where they settled and took control. Rezon was Israel's adversary as long as Solomon lived, adding to the trouble caused by Hadad. So Rezon ruled in Aram and was hostile toward Israel. Also, Jeroboam son of Nebat rebelled against the king. He was one of Solomon's officials, an Ephraimite from Zeredah, and his mother was a widow named Zeruah. Thus, according to these verses, adversaries were raised against Solomon as a consequence of his disobedience. Rezon, who fled from Hadadezer, became a constant adversary, ruling in Aram and opposing Israel. Additionally, Jeroboam, a former official, rebelled against Solomon. These events marked a turning point in Solomon's reign due to the consequences of his departure from God's commands. The concluding events of King Solomon's life are summarized in 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 41 to 43. As for the other events of Solomon's reign, all he did and the wisdom he displayed, are they not written in the book of the Annals of Solomon? Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel 40 years. Then he rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David his father, and Rehoboam his son succeeded him as king. These verses provide a summary of the end of Solomon's reign, mentioning his accomplishments, the length of his rule, and his succession by his son Rehoboam. Solomon's pervasive sadness is evident in his reflections on life in the books of Song of Solomon, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes. Despite his wisdom, he realized his reign had devolved into immorality and idolatry. In Ecclesiastes, he explored various pursuits of happiness, from learning and laughter to luxury and lust. Yet he found them all meaningless, like chasing the wind. He realized that the pursuit of pleasure, wealth, and worldly wisdom ultimately leads to emptiness and disillusionment. Solomon's palace echoed with laughter and pleasure, but he concluded that true joy is found in a relationship with God. Psalm chapter 16, verse 11. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. This verse expresses the idea that true joy and lasting pleasure are found in a close and intimate relationship with God. It emphasizes the fulfillment that comes from being in the presence of the Lord. Wealth, luxury, and physical pleasure failed to bring lasting happiness. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 4 to 11 provides insight into Solomon's quest for happiness and the ultimate realization of its futility. I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had other slaves who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself, and the treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers, and a harem as well, the delights of a man's heart. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this, my wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done, and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. These verses outline Solomon's pursuit of pleasure, wealth, and accomplishment. Despite his unparalleled success and indulgence in every desire, he concluded that these pursuits were ultimately empty and meaningless, likening them to a chasing after the wind. This realization underscores the theme in Ecclesiastes that true meaning and fulfillment come from a deeper connection with God rather than earthly pursuits. His personal testimony in Ecclesiastes highlights the emptiness of life without a connection to the Creator. In the end, Solomon urged others to remember their Creator early in life, recognizing that true contentment is found in God. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 1 is a verse that serves as a poignant conclusion to the reflections of Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes. It states, "Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, 'I find no pleasure in them.'" This verse is a call to prioritize and remember God early in life, emphasizing the importance of acknowledging the Creator before the challenges and difficulties of old age arrive. Solomon highlights the significance of cultivating a relationship with God throughout one's life, recognizing that true contentment is found in remembering and honoring the Creator. Solomon's reign is noted for his wisdom and achievements, documented in the Annals of Solomon. He ruled over Israel for 40 years, and upon his death, he was buried in the city of David. Solomon was succeeded by his son Rehoboam as the new king. This marks the conclusion of the episode in the biblical narrative regarding King Solomon. Thus, Solomon's legacy is one of both great wisdom and errors, serving as a lesson about the consequences of straying from faithfulness to God. So, friends, that's all for today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. Also, feel free to share your feedback or criticism in the comments below.